What if I told you that in the quiet, rural backwoods of Tylertown, Mississippi, one of the most sinister, forgotten cult cases in American history, and it happened in small-town Mississippi? Behind a red brick church, past the pine trees and gravel roads, there was a place so dark, so disturbing. That right here, in a place you'd never expect. 493 Enon Sartonville Road, over 50 victims were trapped under the control of one man for over 30 years. Children beaten for not selling enough candy. Boys taken from their families and renamed, claimed by one man. Women brainwashed to the point they turned against their own blood. This is not fiction. This is the Valley of the Kings, and somehow almost no one remembers it. Every name in this story, every survivor, every witness mentioned in this story went public. They want it told. They want it remembered, because for decades it was buried. But what happened behind those gates should have made world headline news, but not when it happens in the pines of Mississippi. It began in Baxterville, Mississippi. A man named David Earl King, a preacher with charisma, control, and no accountability, founded a church that drew in desperate, searching families. He preached authority, submission, God's order. But when accusations of molestation surfaced, the church mysteriously burned to the ground, and King vanished, only to reappear 60 miles north in J.S., Mississippi. With 58 acres, a new church, a massive house, and loyal followers, they called it the Valley of the Kings. Locals called it weird. It was a cult. February 2001. Nathaniel Lamb, 13 years old, told his parents something no child should ever have to say. David Earl King had been sexually abusing him. That night, his family turned off all the lights, locked the doors, and prayed bullets wouldn't come through the walls. They were terrified because they knew what King was capable of. When the Lambs came forward, other survivors followed, and what investigators found was horrifying. Victims stretched from Mississippi to California: grooming, assault, child labor, religious manipulation, a 3-decade trail of pain. Joanna Lawrence, Leah Lofton, and Tabitha Gibson were born into it. Their mother, Audra Ann Heatland, once a Navy chaplain's secretary, found King's church after a broken marriage. When King told her to leave her husband, she did. When he suggested her husband should die, she shot him in front of her children. He survived. She went to prison. 2 years later, she rejoined King, bringing the kids to the compound. The girls sold candy door to door in 3 states. If they didn't meet their $40 quota, they weren't fed. Sometimes just bread and water. Sometimes beatings. Middle sister Leah remembers strangers offering food on her routes. She calls them God sent. But the worst wound came when their mother handed over their brother Sean to King. At 10 years old, he was moved into the main house. King changed his last name. He said their mother wasn't qualified to raise a boy. Years later, that boy would stand in court, tried under the name Nathan Paul King, alongside the man who abused him. This wasn't just about physical abuse. It was complete control. Children had to read the Bible cover to cover twice before they could graduate. No red clothing, no outside friends, no outside churches. There were no elders, no board, just King. One man, all power, no rules. Man, all. But here's where it gets chilling. King wasn't just a controlling pastor. He was a predator. A man who once posed in a photograph beside infamous cult leader and Jonestown massacre head Jim Jones. The symbolism couldn't be ignored. It wasn't coincidence. It was reflection. In 2001, after years of silence, the victim spoke. David Earl King was sentenced to 30 years in prison for sexual abuse and exploitation. The court confirmed what many feared. This wasn't a church. It was a trap. The Valley of the Kings is silent now. The church is empty. The homes are abandoned, but for the survivors, the echoes of that place still follow them. David Earl King, preacher, predator, manipulator, died in prison. He never apologized, never took responsibility. He went to his grave with the blood of generations on his hands, but the cult he built, the lies he told, the children he broke, those truths are no longer buried. This wasn't just a tragedy, it was a system of control, a hidden hell in plain sight in Tylertown, Mississippi. And for decades, the world looked away, not anymore. The Valley of the Kings, 50+ victims, 30 years, one monster dead.